Hello, and thanks for joining us today. I'm super excited that you could be here. Today, we're going to be diving into a few really cool topics, real estate related. First of all, we're going to talk to one of what I kind of call the land master. I mean, this is the guy that is most notoriously known for investing in land, and there's a lot of cool stuff you're going to learn. And by the way, I'm a land investor. That's like one of my favorite things that I love to do. So we're going to dive in and talk a little bit more about that. And we're also going to talk about self-storage facilities. And we're also going to talk about something we've never talked about on the show, which I think is super cool. It's like my newest TikTok obsession that I'm into, which is truck parking and how you can make money there as well. So we've got a lot of cool stuff to be able to talk about. With us today to have this discussion is Seth Williams. Now, Seth's actually the founder of REtipster, and that is a trusted real estate investing brand and podcast that actually teaches practical strategies for building wealth through land investing and creative real estate approaches. So he's actually known for his humble, value-driven style. Seth actually focuses on delivering actionable content that helps both beginners and experienced investors succeed. So his journey actually began in college, where books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad sparked the interest in financial freedom and investing. And after struggling for years with rentals and house flips, he actually discovered land flipping in 2008 and quickly realized its potential. So closing his first few deals proved the model worked. And then he went on to actually complete dozens more and establish land as his primary niche back in the day. And through REtipster, Seth has actually built a platform that simplifies real estate concepts into clear step-by-step guidance. You got to check out REtipster. I love their site. So much cool stuff there. And from blog posts to courses and the REtipster podcast, he shares proven techniques for helping investors find deals, close transactions, and build long-term wealth. Seth, what's up, man? Welcome to the show today.
Hey, Ty. Thanks for having me. Yeah, man, it's great to be here. Man, you just covered like my whole life story there in that intro. That's awesome.
I get it, like three equivalent of paragraphs. We were able to do it. I'm really excited you're here because you know, it's not a lot of people that have expertise in these kind of core areas like you have. And I want to dive and talk a little bit about land because I'm a massive land fan. I mean, I love land. I've done it for, not nearly as long as you, but I've done it for a while on the side, and I absolutely am obsessed about it. But I wonder if, from your perspective, you did flips. You did a lot of the same real estate stuff that everybody else did. You found land, you loved it. Why land over anything else?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, my thought about land was probably similar to a lot of other people when I first heard about it. I was just like, what? Like, where's the cash flow? Like, why would I do this? It's just dirt, you know? But that's actually part of the beauty of it, is because it's just dirt. It's a much simpler type of property to deal with without any people problems. There's no tenants. There's no improvements on the property that are falling apart. Nothing gets broken or stolen or destroyed. You can buy a piece of land and leave it alone for 10 years and come back, and it's the same way it was when you left. It's a beautiful thing, but it only makes sense if you can actually buy the land at a discount. When we talk about the land flipping business model, it's really what makes it work, is the ability to find land and buy it, way below what that thing is worth. Because if you buy any asset for way less than what it's worth, it's not that hard to make money on that thing. You can turn around and not do anything and list it for sale and sell it at, still a discount from its full market value, but make money on it, depending on how big of a discount you got it on in the first place. So that's kind of the land flipping business model. And as that space has gotten, more popular over the years, a lot of land investors have been getting a little bit more complicated and complex, where they're not just flipping it, they're actually like doing something to the land, whether it's building something out or subdividing it or getting it entitlements, which basically just means you're getting permission to build something, but you're not actually building it. You're just getting all the approvals, and then you sell it to somebody else, and then they can build it. So there's lots of other ways to, add value to land without actually getting your feet dirty and getting on the land itself. It's like paper value. So you can do that too, but there's lots of opportunity in land. It's a great business.
Yeah. I enjoy it too. I found that I like the wholesaling part. I mean, it works well for me. Like, I just put mailers out there and find land, buy them below value. And I just literally flip them to other investors and make $5,000 a property for just doing it. Yeah. I mean, very little work to do it. So there's just so many opportunities, I think, to be able to do that. If somebody's just getting started in land, what do you tell them? Like, where do they even go to get the beginning education and knowledge that they need to be able to do that? Does REtipster have a lot of that kind of stuff, or where should they go to kind of take a first step?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've spent over like 12, 13 years now putting together content on REtipster, diving specifically into that. Probably if I could point you to one place where you can just get a really good high level overview of the land business, it's landflippinglifecycle.com. which just redirects you to a blog post I made with a nice 30-minute video explaining the whole thing. Gives you a really good understanding of like what's going on here. How are we finding these deals? Like what are we doing specifically to find them and make money from them? And from there, it links to a lot of other things on REtipster.com that explain each step in a lot more depth. So it's a good place to get started. But yeah, I mean, depending on what exactly you want to do in land, like if you're doing what you just said, wholesaling the less expensive lots, it's a fairly simple thing. That's how I started. That's how a lot of people get started. Historically, the most popular way people have used to find these deals is by sending direct mail, and that still works. The drawback with that is just that these days postage is getting more expensive and response rates on certain properties in certain markets are getting lower. So it doesn't, the bang for your buck isn't quite there like it was 5 years ago, but it still works. Other ways to do it would be sending out text marketing or cold calling or ringless voicemail. There's lots of other ways to do it. But it's really just about finding that segment of society that owns land and they're apathetic and they don't care about it and they don't want it. And they're happy to let it go at a huge discount because they see it as a nuisance, not the asset that it is.
And what's the first step for somebody to do that? Like if I want to get in there, I come in, and by the way, is it landflippinglifecycle.com?
Yep, landflippinglifecycle.com.
So I go to landflippinglifecycle.com. I get that high level overview. And then I would imagine one of the first things I want to do is I want to be able to go out and figure out what market I'm going to go into and start marketing, right? So let's start there. Like, how do I figure out the right market for me to even get started in to find land to potentially buy?
Sure. Well, in terms of finding the market, there's actually a number of different tools out there that have made this process a lot easier. But you're really looking for a few different metrics to start with. First of all, you want to understand what exactly am I trying to buy? Like what type of property, what size should it be? Population, density, things like that. Just kind of give a good idea for what your perfect property is. Say if you decide it's going to be properties that are 1 to 5 acres in a rural area, you could find a rural county or a rural zip code or 2 or 3 or 10. And you can go to a website like Zillow and find what's called the sell-through rate or the sold to for sale ratio. And you're basically looking at all the properties that fit your criteria, of that certain size range that are vacant land. And you find all the ones that have sold in the past 12 months. And then you also find the number of properties that are currently for sale. And you take that sold number and you divide it by the number of properties currently for sale. And it's going to give you a ratio. Anywhere from, 0.5 to, 1.5, maybe 2, maybe 2.5. But what this ratio is telling you is if you get a ratio that's just 1, so 1.00, what that's telling you is that we've got balance in the market. So the same number of properties that are currently for sale, that same number has sold in the past 12 months. What that's telling you is that, as properties hit the market, they sell at a reasonable rate, But if you find that number is maybe 0.5 or 0.25, that's telling you the market is moving really, really slow. So you're going to list it for sale. It's going to take a long time to sell. If that number is over 1, say if it's 2 or 3 or 6, for example, that's blazing hot. That means your property is going to sell very quickly. The reason this is important to know is because for land flippers, usually the biggest bottleneck is when it comes time to sell. You have good property, you list it for sale. And what you don't want is to just hear crickets where nobody cares, nobody's calling, nobody wants it. And if you can find in these markets where properties are selling faster, that bottleneck is not going to be as big of a problem for you because properties sell fast there. The one drawback, though, is that if the properties are selling too quickly, if it's too hot of a market, that could make it really hard for you to find deals in the first place because land is selling so stinking fast. So what I usually try to do is I try to find counties or zip codes or markets where that ratio is around 1 because it's telling me it's not going to be too slow and it's not going to be too fast. It'll be a decent expectation of how long this is going to take to sell. And that's one of the most popular metrics a lot of land investors look for. And that's how you can find a market where that bottleneck issue probably is not going to be there. And it's also not going to be too hard to find properties. So that's one way to go about it. There's other things to look at too, but that's probably what I would start with.
Yeah, I love that. And then and the kind of tips I'm sure you give on REtipster, which is amazing advice. I've never heard anything like that in the land industry. So you talked a little bit about, narrowing down the kind of property you're going to look at, which makes sense. In real estate, same thing. If you're going to get real estate, what kind of property, house. So if you're going to buy like homes, apartments, you got to narrow that down. So same thing on land. You talked about multiple different ways you can then go and get to potential sellers. And you said there's also tools out there to be able to find lists of people that own land to potentially go and buy their properties from.
Yeah, definitely. There's a bunch of different data services out there. They're all fine. They can all do a very similar thing. The one that I use right now is called the Land Portal. And the reason I use the Land Portal is because it's a data service that's built specifically for land investors, whereas a lot of other data services like PropStream or Property Radar or DataTree, they're built either for house investors or for just a more general audience, and they don't really care that much about land people specifically. The reason the Land Portal is really helpful is because they offer certain filters that you can use to find properties that no other data service has. Like understanding what is the slope of this property? How steep is it? How difficult will it be to build on? Or how much road frontage is on this property? Is the property landlocked? Is it in a wetland area? All these things are hot button topics for land investors and land investors only. House investors don't really care about this stuff. So the Land Portal just allows you to really quickly weed out the junk that you probably don't want. Or if you want to specifically target landlocked properties for some reason, you could do that too. But there's just a ton of useful tools in there. And with that, you basically just pick the state and the county that you want to work in. And there's a ton of different filters you can use to say, I want only these types of properties and property owners on my list. And when you export it, you can get their mailing addresses, you can get their phone numbers, their email addresses in some cases, everything you would need to reach out to them and start saying, hey, do you want to sell your property? If so, give me a call and we can talk more about it. So, and I've got a bunch of different tutorials on REtipster explaining how to use the Land Portal and pull these kinds of lists if you're ever interested in that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that advice. And to give you an idea from my perspective of what I deal with, because I use FreedomSoft as a CRM, which I want to ask you about CRM. And I try to pull my list through there, but it sucks, man. What happens is the people that respond are all landlocked, they're all in wetland areas, and so it's just a complete waste, of time to be able to figure that out. So I'm really going to take your advice on that. CRM wise, what are you using? If you pull the list, do you put it somewhere and use a CRM to then help you with the marketing aspects?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So actually, it's funny you ask. We actually just launched a CRM earlier this year. It's called Stride, STRIDE. CRM.co is the website. But we really built this thing because, there's a bunch of different CRMs out there like FreedomSoft. There's a number of other ones. And CRMs are kind of interesting because everybody kind of wants a little bit of a different thing out of them. Like when you just mentioned pulling the list, I never would have even thought about pulling a list from my CRM. I see a CRM as like, this is how I manage my customers or the people that respond. When I have a lead or a deal I'm working on, that's when it hits my CRM, not in the very initial stage when I'm pulling a list. But some people might like that. So, but our CRM, it's mainly meant to manage a lot of the deal flow. Once a person responds and says, yes, I want to sell, or just start the conversation, that's when it starts tracking them. It tracks all their property details. And some of the really cool things about it is that with all the information about each property in there, you can generate and send a purchase agreement with like one click. It's like an instantaneous thing. It emails it to them. It's a digital signature. It reminds them to sign it if they haven't signed the thing. Stuff that used to take me hours to create purchase agreements and send them, and then people would say no or just not respond, and I just wasted all that time. This can do that in seconds. So things like that, it streamlines that, has a lot of automations built into it to either remind you when to follow up with people or just follow up automatically on your behalf. And that stuff alone can save tons of deals that would otherwise die because nobody's following up with them. We also just added a voice AI agent. So now when people call, there's a AI voice that talks to people and gathers their information and puts it right into your CRM. Stuff that you used to have to either pay a human to do or just not do at all, and then you would lose opportunities. Now it happens automatically around the clock with this voice AI agent. It sounds like really good. It sounds very human and responds with empathy. It's pretty amazing thing, I think.
Yeah, that's cool. And I just checked it out. And what I like about the StrideCRM.co is that it's land. It's built for land. And, any other CRM that you use, that I've messed around with, they're not built for land, and so it's overwhelming with features you're not going to use, and then the stuff you need, it doesn't really do what you need it to do, as you know, because you get frustrated and like solve the problem. So I love that. And, when you're watching this, keep in mind that, we're starting here with landflippingcycle.com, right? Landflippingcycle.com like gives you the overview of exactly what to do. And now, as Seth has shared, now then you're able to come here and go to the land portal to actually find the right land to buy, right? And then you come in and you've got stridecrm.co. And then this is where you can actually come in and literally start building what you need to be able to start marketing to those people using multiple methods that Seth knows that are available through Stride. So now, with that being the case, what do we know what to offer? Like, how can we figure out like how much we should be offering for this land? Because that's, if we make a mistake, like that's what I think a lot of people may be afraid of.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And it's a loaded question, but still a very good question. I mean, a lot of our success has to do with how much we're offering on these things. And a lot of knowing what to offer comes back to knowing what is this thing worth in the first place? So that's kind of the first question, is how do we appraise this land? And the trouble with appraising land is that even licensed appraisers don't really know how to do it, because the data that you need to appraise a property, in many cases for land, doesn't really exist. And even when it does exist, it's kind of imperfect. The most we really have to work with is what have other similar properties sold for in the immediate vicinity over the past 6 to 12 months. Sometimes you can find that information. Sometimes you can't. You have to either go further back in time or go further out from the property and sort of make adjustments. And it can be kind of a tricky thing. But the reason, it goes back to the importance of why we offer discounted prices. It's so that if we end up being a little bit off on our estimation, we're still okay, because there's a big profit margin and a buffer of protection there for us to take care of us, even if we were a little bit wrong. So, but in terms of like how much to offer, so it's kind of a sliding scale depending on what the property is worth. So say if it's worth, I don't know, $100,000. In that case, my offer might be in the range of like 40 to 55% of market value for that. If it was a property that was worth, say, $10,000, in that case, my offer would be closer to like 20 to 30% of its market value. So as the properties get more expensive, the offer price percentage goes up. And the reason it goes up is because, first of all, people that own really valuable properties, they're less likely to just let it go for nothing. And also, as properties get more expensive, it becomes less about the ROI percentage, like the percentage of market value, and a lot more about like, how many dollars am I actually making on this? If you get a property that is worth, I don't know, $500,000 and you buy it for $450,000, I mean, that's pretty high. I don't know that I would do that personally, but if you bought it at $450,000 and sold it for $500,000, that's a $50,000 profit. If you were actually really confident about your ability to do that, say if you had a buyer lined up before you even bought the thing, that easily justifies offering a lot more if you can be confident about both ends of the deal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. With when that being the case, let's say we find we get the property, we make the offer. What about money? I mean, land's pretty tough to finance. So where do you find that you're teaching people to get the money to be able to do the investing?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. So you're correct that if you were to try to buy a vacant residential lot, and if you had no plans to build on that thing, you just want to buy it and just keep it, you're going to have a really hard time finding any bank that wants anything to do with that. It's just banks, I mean, they kind of have a similar dilemma with the appraisal issue. Like, it's hard for them to be confident in what that thing is worth. And so for a lot of them, they just don't do land like that unless you're planning to build on it. Then that changes things, because now we have a building. Now it's easier to appraise. But that being said, in terms of financing, so one option is to just use whatever cash you have or get like a HELOC or a personal loan if you have the ability to do that. Another option would be to find a land funder. And there's actually a lot of land funders out there now. None of these people were around when I got started, but funding land deals is like a serious business for a lot of people who they understand the land flipping business, but they don't want to have to be the one who goes out and finds the deal. So if you bring a deal to them, they'll cover everything. They'll pay for the closing costs, the whole purchase price, everything. And then when the thing sells, they will split the profit with you as the land flipper. So it's kind of good and bad in that, the good news is you don't have to use any of your own money, which is a huge advantage because a lot of that financial risk is now gone because it's not your money. But the downside is if you had used your own money, you could have made twice as much on the profit when the thing sells. So there's definitely trade-offs. Another option would be, I'm trying to think, I know some people that offer to buy the property from the seller with them financing it. So it's like purchasing it with seller financing. And they structure the deal so that there's one annual payment, which means they could potentially buy that thing and sell it before they ever have to make the first payment. So they don't have any of their own money at the end of the deal. So that's kind of a different way to go about it if you're confident the thing will sell. And there's probably other ways too, but those are the ways that come to mind for me.
Any suggested land funders that you really like right now?
It kind of depends on the type of deal you're trying to do. There's actually a website, I believe it's landfunding.partners is the website. It's not my website. A friend of mine, Chris Duff, runs it, but it's a list of just all the different funders out there that they know of. And there's different levels of quality to them. I don't know that anybody's endorsing any of these funders, but if you're just looking for who are these people, you can find a lot of them there. And, different funders have different philosophies on this. All of them expect to take a lot of the money out of the deal. So that's something you should go into it expecting. But some of them have a very small underwriting box and they say no to 95% of the stuff they see. Others are frankly kind of flippant about it and they're kind of willing to do whatever as long as, again, they get to take home a big chunk of that pie. So I would just start contacting the people that you see there and see what you find out.
What do you find is the best way to market and sell them once you actually have acquired the land?
Yeah, well, something that's become very popular over the past 5 years is just working with, licensed real estate agents who specialize in land. And there's a big difference between that and just a normal run-of-the-mill agent that sells houses. Agents that sell houses and only houses usually just don't understand the dynamics of land. They're very different animals in where you list them and sell them and how you find the buyers for this kind of stuff. Even just the knowledge of how these things work and how to value them is very different. So you want to make sure you find a licensed land specialized real estate agent. Got a couple blog posts on REtipster explaining how to do that. Another way, though, if you just wanted to list it yourself, you could do that. And there's all kinds of places you can list it. There's the land.com network. There's Craigslist. There's Facebook Marketplace. There's Zillow for sale by owner. I've got another blog post with 50 different websites you can list properties on for free. So there's lots of places you can do it. But make no mistake, if you decide to list and sell your own stuff, there's a lot of work to that. It's a big job. And in a lot of ways, you can easily justify paying a agent 6 to 10% commission on the sale price if they completely remove that job from your plate and actually do a good job. So that's why a lot of people have been moving to that model of just finding agents.
Yeah, I love that. And I appreciate that, Seth. I mean, you literally gave us a whole blueprint, including where to go, the resources. And you're watching this. I put this on the show resources page for the show as well. So all the links that Seth has actually talked about. You built a self-storage facility, I think, from the ground up. I've not actually had anybody on the show that's done that. Is that what happened? And give me a little bit of insights, because I like to kind of switch off land for a second, because you've got some education and knowledge in a lot of different areas. So tell me a little bit more about it.
Yeah, sure. So self-storage was something I had been interested in for years. A lot of people are fascinated about the idea that really, like, people will pay you just to store their junk in these metal buildings. And yes, they will. But I had been trying to get into this for a long time. And in, I think it was 2020, I decided to really start pushing and marketing and trying to find an existing storage facility within a 1 hour drive radius of where I lived that I could buy. And I found a problem that nobody was willing to sell these things at a price that made sense. Not even close. People were asking for twice as much as what these things were worth. And other people were buying them. People were legitimately tripping over each other to overpay for these facilities. And I was just man, how am I supposed to find a deal on this? And I never could do it. But when I saw that, and I saw how, frankly, inflated self-storage seemed to be, I realized, man, I could probably build one of these things myself. And even if I like screwed it all up, I could probably still sell it empty and make a profit on it. And normally I would never build anything. I've never done this before, but that gave me a lot of comfort knowing just the state of the self-storage industry at the time. So decided to buy a piece of land, and we built a 27,600 square foot storage facility with 170 drive-up storage units and then 68 parking spaces for boats and RVs. And it took about a year to design it and get the financing and build the thing. And when we opened up, I think it was about 2 years after that. So what was it? Just this past year, when it filled up to the point where we were not losing money anymore. So that's 3 years from the moment I bought the land to the moment we stopped losing money. So 3 years, and then I had to put in about $400,000 of cash, plus a lot of risk involved with just building and the timeline that goes along with that. And it all turned out fine. But in hindsight, I don't know that I would necessarily do it again unless the market was like red hot and took off again, which is really hard to predict. But it was a fun adventure, and I documented the whole thing with a series of YouTube videos showing each step of the process. And in some ways, it's almost like, man, it'd be a shame if I didn't do this again, because I learned a lot of valuable lessons, but I'm still trying to weigh that risk in terms of like, do I want to sign up for that all over again? We'll see.
How's the ROI been since? Like, are you into it enough to know what kind of money you're really going to be making on it?
Yeah, so when the thing is totally full, I think we're at about 75% occupancy right now. But when it's full, I think it'll be pulling in about 75 grand or 75,000 just for me. And another little thing to know is when I was about halfway through construction, one of the local competitors in the area reached out and said, "Hey, Seth, I see you're building this. I don't really want competition. Can I just like buy this from you right now? Like you just drop everything, I'll finish building it, and you go away." Because he wanted to control the market and dictate what pricing was going to be. And I could totally mess that up if I started having really low prices and that kind of thing. And I was thinking, I don't really want to quit. Like I want to try this before I just cut and run.
Right.
He's like, well, what if we partner with you? Like, what if I come in, I'll invest 25% and then I'll manage it along with my other locations, and you can keep 75% and just collect the cash. And I was like, man, that actually sounds really good. Like I never really wanted to manage this thing anyway. So he's my partner now. So he gets 25%, I get 75%. And all this to say, when it's totally occupied and totally stabilized, about 75 grand a year is what my take home will be for it.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What about buying them? Would you buy them instead of build them from the ground up?
Yeah. I mean, that was really the original objective in the first place. And the only reason I didn't was because I couldn't find a deal at the time. I just sent out a mail campaign a couple months ago trying to find another existing one to buy. And I'm finding that they're still a little overinflated in terms of sellers wanting more than they're worth in my immediate vicinity. And when I say immediate vicinity, I mean within about 50-mile radius from where I live. So my next step is to go out 100 miles from where I live and try to find even more. So still searching, but that would be the ideal next step, because when you buy an existing one, you've got cash flow on day one instead of waiting for years like I had to do.
Pretty cool. As we wrap up, truck parking. I love it, man. I never knew the thing. I saw my first TikTok video, and now I'm like down the rabbit hole with truck parking. I mean, it's just, tell me more. Like you really dove in and went all in to figure this out. And by the way, you're watching this REtipster, all these tips, this is what REtipster is about. So all the stuff that he's out there doing, he's learning, he's putting out there. You can go to REtipster and then also make sure you check out the podcast. But tell me a little bit more about the truck park.
Yeah. So I was really deep into this last year. I was like pretty sure I was going to try to build one or buy one or something. And there was just a lot of stuff I learned along the way. It's kind of been put on hold for other reasons. But the bottom line is parking for semi-trucks is a problem pretty much everywhere in the U.S. In some places, it's a huge problem. Like you'll see semi-trucks pulling over and parking on the side of the highway at night because there's nowhere to park. And when you think about a semi-truck, they can't just pull up to like Starbucks or McDonald's. Like they need a huge parking spot where they can put their semi-truck. And there's different types of semi-truck parking lots. Some of them are like by the night or by the week. Others could be monthly. And what I was trying to do was do the monthly option because it's less traffic. It's a much simpler thing to try to manage. And they don't make as much money, but it's simpler from a management standpoint. And the idea is you want to find a property that's ideally like 3 to 4 acres or larger, because that's when it starts to economically make sense, where you can put a bunch of semi-truck parking spaces. Usually the sizes of each space is about 20 feet wide by 80 feet long. And, it's not hard to have somebody on Fiverr put together a little plan for you to figure out how many spaces could fit on each property. But it's just a fascinating business because it's similar to self-storage in that it's fairly low maintenance. It's not a huge management burden. With a parking lot, there's not a lot of moving pieces to this. We're talking like a gravel parking lot, a fence, a gate, lighting, maybe some cameras, and some management software that collects the payments. That's pretty much it. Like if you can manage a self-storage facility, you could totally do a semi-truck parking lot. And the big drawback or the difficulty that I found is getting the local municipality to say, yes, we want that there, because truck parking lots are kind of an eyesore. Like nobody really wants them around, but that doesn't mean they're not needed. So you kind of need to find a property that's in a sort of industrial-ish part of town, preferably where it's already being used for trucks in some way, maybe like a mechanic shop with a big empty parking lot. Like that's a perfect ideal location for this kind of thing. So yeah, there's a lot more to say about it, but that's it in a nutshell.
I loved having you here, man. It's cool. Like if I wasn't in the business of helping people get money, I would probably be a mini me version of you. Cause like you're into all the stuff I love. Like this is so cool. Yeah. I love it. Land is phenomenal. Like self-storage is so cool. I'd love to learn that whole industry. I have the time to do it. And truck parking, I just think is super cool right now. So I really appreciate what you do for the industry because REtipster is phenomenal. And if you're watching again, make sure you go to REtipster because it's just full of resources that can teach you all this kind of things. We just scratched the surface of the insight that Seth has. So where everybody should go? Where should everybody go that wants to learn more about any of these different topics? Land, self-storage, trucking, the things that you've learned along the way, what should they do?
Yeah. So REtipster.com is kind of like the home base for everything. And a little secret, not everybody realizes this, but there is a little search, magnifying glass icon right in the navigation bar at the top. And it's really cool. It's kind of like when you search on Google, you type stuff out and it starts populating things that it thinks you're searching for. You can find just about anything through that thing. So if you're looking for land investing, just type out land. If you're looking for truck parking, just type out truck. You can find just about anything through that. Again, if you're interested in land investing specifically, landflippinglifecycle.com is the URL. You can go check out that blog post that explains everything. I've also got a course, the Land Investing Masterclass, landinvestingmasterclass.com. That is like a super deep dive into everything you need to know. And if you're looking for me on social media, just wherever you're at, type in REtipster and you'll find me there.
Awesome. Seth, thanks again for coming on with us today.
You bet. Thanks, Ty.
All right. So a few things you want to do. First of all, just go to REtipster.com. And if you go to REtipster right at the top, you're able to not only search, but right above the search, you're actually able to join their community. So make sure you check that out. It's only going to take you minutes to go there and check out REtipster. So make sure you do that. And again, we just scratched the surface. I mean, the education you need of decades of what he's done, and then what he's learned along the way is there. Their podcast, they've got hundreds of episodes. You can even access the podcast episodes from REtipster as well. So make sure you go there. If you're really interested in getting invested in land, and I think you should, it is fun as heck. I mean, I've been doing it for a while. I just do a little bit of it, right? But I love it. I mean, I'm just obsessed with it. I love it. It's so much fun. You should really go to landflippinglifecycle.com, landflippinglifestyle.com. And landflippinglifestyle.com is the overview, the high-level overview of exactly what you need to know to be able to be successful. And then don't forget to check out his course as well. The course is at landinvestingmasterclass.com. That's landinvestingmasterclass.com. If you forget all of these, well, that's your fault. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to put them all on the show resources page, so they're here for you. So don't not forget REtipster.com. We also want to go to landflippinglifecycle.com, and we want to go to landinvestingmasterclass.com. Make sure you check out those resources. So thank you very much for tuning in. Take care, and I hope you have a phenomenal